All right.
It's called The Dodged Bullet.
Oh.
And it comes to us from a gentleman who watches the show named David. I had ended up stumbling into MGTOW thoughts pretty young before I ever heard of it. This was largely due to my first girlfriend who was abusive, cheated on me with at least 5 other guys, and was just trying to get pregnant for similar reasons to what my mother did.
Oh, no.
That's why you picked her.
Yep.
And you're going to pick women just like that until you recognize that that's your normal. This relationship didn't last long, not even a year. There isn't really much to say about it beyond what I saw my dad go through, and this relationship made me suspicious about ever getting married or having children. The cheating and her plan I didn't find out about until years later after we had broken up. Unsurprisingly, last I heard, she moved to a welfare-heavy state and became a fat single mother.
So she moved to Michigan.
One could likely argue that this is a dodged bullet as well, and they're probably right. In retrospect, I should have dropped her long before I did, but I was also a dipshit 18-year-old who didn't know any better yet. The real dodged bullet was my last girlfriend. When we first started seeing each other and we were discussing getting together, long-term marriage was discussed. By then, I had long since decided no marriage ever, thanks to what was mentioned above. I explained why to her, and her only response was, "Yeah, that makes sense. I understand."
Uh-huh.
I wasn't against planning on staying with somebody for life. There's just no way I was signing that piece of paper. Knowing what happens in divorce court has ensured that there is absolutely no way I will risk it. Nothing will ever change my mind.
Good.
This, I think, is how all men should be right now, given how horrid things are.
That's why we do the show, man.
Overall, though, in her case, when I met her, she was a joy to be around, and the sex was regular enough for my tastes.
That's the way it always begins.
Yep. We bonded over a lot of mutual interests, and unlike most Americans, she made a point of not getting fat. Great looking, too. She was financially responsible at the time. And overall, holy shit, I got lucky on this one. I'm never letting go territory.
She good people. She loves me.
She different. She loves me.
I've heard it all, man. I've heard it all.
Problem was, she eventually started hanging out with toxic feminists.
There you go. It's a done deal.
Done and done. At one point after we had lived together for a while, she said she knew my views on marriage, but really did want to spend her life with me. She asked if we could live together as if we were husband and wife without actually being married. Things were still fine at this point, and I did genuinely want to stay with her, so I agreed. The state we lived in at the time at one point had common law marriage. Stick a pin in that as it will become important later. All right. The key word there is had. The law had been repealed long before all this went down, and I knew that. That was when things started to go downhill. As soon as I agreed, it was like a switch flipped. The sex became less frequent, and she put continually less effort into it. She became increasingly hostile and uncooperative. Her demands increased while what she offered decreased. Nothing I ever did was good enough toward the end of things. The things I used to cook for her that she clearly enjoyed suddenly were insulting. We started living together. We were stuck living together as we had a lease signed, so it wasn't like we could just easily separate either. Despite that, she would declare that we were over, but then complain that I started treating her differently.
What the fuck do you want?
My response was simply, if you want girlfriend-level treatment from me, you have to be my girlfriend. If we break up, we're just roommates, and I have no responsibility to you beyond my half of the expenses.
Nice.
For better or for worse, I'm extremely no-nonsense. Sometimes she would go back to being my girlfriend, but other times she was trying to figure out how to get girlfriend priority without being my girlfriend. Sounds like my horse chick.
Yes.
I'll
Same
admit
thing
that
with my horse chick too.
Yeah, they love to pull this shit because what they really want is somebody to finance their lifestyle so they can spend time with their horse.
That's absolutely correct.
Bitches. I'll admit that I put up with this crap way longer than I should have, but part of that was attempting to steer her out of that dark path. I did, of course, care about her and didn't want to see her burn her life down like happens to so many women who go that way. I also could tell that she was conflicted over the entire thing, as there were times that I saw her coming back from the edge. Unfortunately, it failed in the long run, and she eventually took a screaming leap off the cliff and became unrecoverable. Live and learn, I guess.
Yep.
Obviously, eventually jettisoning her from my life and not having children with her are dodged bullets in and of themselves, but recall that I did mention common law marriage.
Oh, my God.
I think most states at some point had a common law marriage law, but they have largely been repealed. This isn't even a particularly recent thing, and those that do exist are increasingly not enforced as far as I know. I'm neither a lawyer nor legal expert, so I can't talk specifics. Be that as it may, the state we lived in is one of the ones where common law marriage had long since been repealed. She did all the things that women do when setting up a nasty divorce. She would refuse to answer the phone at a time we agreed to talk about something we had to sort out, and then claim it was harassment when I called her more than once. I still had some belongings left in the apartment we had previously shared, but arranging to get them became a nightmare. She started sending, "I don't feel safe around you" texts and telling people that I'd become abusive.
That's very common. That's like the first act in their
Yep.
self-destruction in themselves and you.
The worst I had ever done to her were 2 times I yelled. In both cases, she deliberately grated on my nerves until I finally raised my voice. She immediately stopped the grating and smiled, then later declared me to be verbally abusive.
Oh, my God.
This was a common pattern in the last couple of weeks. She would pick stupid fights over petty things and try to make me lose my temper. I just walk away from it as I knew what she was up to.
That's act number 2.
Yep. Knowing what I know, I knew what was going on, so I cleared out the last of my belongings in one go, and when it was finally arranged, and that was that. The dodged bullet is, of course, that even though she went through all that effort to lay the groundwork for a vicious divorce, there was no marriage to end. The state by that point had no common law marriage, so there was no marriage to destroy for profit. Along the way, since I know how these things play out, I knew what she was doing and deliberately failed to give her the ammunition she needed once I figured out what was going on. I don't know if she ended up incurring any legal costs, but nothing legal ever came my way, so I'm assuming that her lawyer realized that we weren't actually married, so there was no divorce to be had. She did all the things that lawyers tell women to do, so there was either one involved or other women who know about such things. She made all kinds of wild accusations, but unsurprisingly, never went to the police.
Yep.
He continues, before she started setting that up, there was some on-again, off-again stuff in that retrospect. I shouldn't have put up with it. One reason I attempted to salvage things was because I realized there was no way I was attempting another relationship after the fact. Turns out I was right. I haven't even been on a date since all this happened. This is something that I've noticed women who do this just don't think about. They think it just happens in a vacuum, but every time one does this sort of thing, there is a high probability she creates another man who just says, "I'm done. No thanks."
Come on to redonkulous.
Come
on to redonkulous.
Yeah. The same pool of men they're mistreating is the same pool of men they're trying to get with later. The custody battle and divorce crap is also similar. The boys who grow up seeing this eventually grow up to become men and think, "I don't want that." Meanwhile, women who are not on this path but get convinced to go down it are obliterating happy, functional relationships between people who care about each other over money. Maybe I'm too sentimental about such things, but I don't think there's any amount of money worth that. I'm atypically agreeable, so I detest being single, but these days things are so bad being in a relationship is worse than being alone. It's been It's been almost 6 years since all this went down. Now, whenever a woman tries to flirt with me, I aggressively ignore it. Men need to hear about this kind of story in particular, as even if you think you got a good one who won't betray you, there's always the possibility that she'll get twisted by hanging out with other women.
Correct.
You don't even necessarily need to be married for a woman to try and extract as much as possible from you once she becomes this type. There's a turd in the punch bowl, as Aaron Clary likes to say. As much as I badly miss who she was before she caught toxic feminism, this is a level of betrayal that's impossible to come back from. If I ever see her again, I'm probably going to say, "Thanks for proving me right," and leave it at that.
No, you don't say anything other than pass.
Yeah, pass. Because she will sling back.
That's right.
It's been about 6 years. You're coming up on it.
That's right.
The fact that this behavior is currently socially acceptable makes me want to spend the rest of my life alone. Women need to hear this kind of story so they know what the fallout ends up being. These things never happen purely in a vacuum, and the pool of men who are interested in relationships is shrinking. So yeah, this wasn't directly a marriage story, but is more of an attempted marriage and divorce story. Sometimes you don't even need to be married for a woman to try to drag you into divorce court.
All right. Now, that was a really good story.
Yeah.
But I have heard the exact same thing unfold hundreds of times throughout my time in the military.
Oh, yeah.
And it always starts with accusations. I can't tell you how many times I'm literally at the company CP. There's the first sergeant. There's the commander. The phone rings. They pick it up. What? He did what? Oh, my God. And I can see them both put on their white night attire. They're going to ride out there and fuck this dude up. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute here. You understand this is like Chick 101, right? Have the police actually been called? Is there any medical bills? Is there any proof at all to this?
Negative, Sergeant.
What's that for, sir? No, okay. All right, so if you guys want to do this right off and fuck this dude up because you got a phone call, you're going to get fucked up down the road because it's called undue command influence.
There you go.
There's no proof. All right, and now if the cops called and said, hey, specialist such and such tuned up his wife, okay, then that's called proof.
Yeah.
And without proof and you take action, you're fucking yourself. So how about we just dial it back from 10 to like 6 and we just ask some fucking questions? It's just that simple.
It is.
I've done that dozens of times. Like, sir, what are you doing? What? You want what? No. You realize you're throwing the boomerang cock block at yourself because this is going to blow up in your face.
Oh.
It's my job to make sure you get a good OER. And right now, if this blows up, you're going to get fucked up.
You're going to get fucked.
Yeah, I've done that so many times.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pog for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the meat caser box.